This episode of the Mad Rush podcast.
I try to tell them they're in recruitment mode 365 days a year, from what they're posting on social media to how they're representing their chapter on campus or at the bars, because we know they're going out. I mean, let's be clear that we are putting our best foot forward. And so the P&Ms need to be doing the same thing, right? What they're posting online, so the chapters are always preparing for new girls to come in. A lot of these chapters even start doing recruitment practice, like on a Sunday or something, even in the fall for the next fall.
Welcome to the Mad Rush podcast. I'm Trisha Addix, the original Sorority Rush consultant. While the stories I have to share are nothing short of astonishing, this podcast goes beyond the wild client tales and sorority life. I'll be engaging with fascinating guests from both within and outside the Greek world, uncovering the surprising connections that bind us all together. Join me for a journey that's as entertaining as it is enlightening. Welcome to Mad Rush. Y'all, I am so excited. My book, The Rush Bible, is available for pre-order from Simon & Schuster. It's coming out next May, but you can order it now, and it's going to be great for anyone who's considering going through Sorority Rush. This is the book for you. You can order it today. The link is in the show notes, and it's also on my Instagram at Rush with Confidence. And I can't wait to get this great information on how to crush Sorority Rush out to all of you. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I appreciate you. Okay, y'all, I'm really excited. I know I say that a lot, but for you guys to listen to today's guest. Her name is Caroline Bell, and she was a Chi Omega, of course. And Caroline has recently joined my It's All Greek to Me team as a director, and she is knowledgeable about all things Rush. And also, the cool thing is she's been through Rush as a parent twice in the last 2 years. So she also has expert knowledge and I'll let her tell you where this knowledge comes from. And you're going to want, if you have a child going through Rush or you are going through Rush, you're going to want to listen up.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. So, Caroline, talk to me about what you do. Well, first off, just introduce yourself. Tell us where you are and why you're qualified to talk to us about this subject.
Oh, boy. So I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have lived in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia almost my whole life. So a Southern girl at heart.
I think people think Virginia is not Southern.
So I have, as I'll get into this in a minute, I have a daughter at Ole Miss, and I don't think they think North Carolina is the South either.
I agree. I do think there's a totally different vibe, too.
I do. And we don't have an SEC team. So I think that's part of it, although that may change in the next few years. But I think that's the other reason is because there is no SEC school in North Carolina. They tend to think we're not in the South. But I'm in Raleigh. I have lived here since 2013. That year we moved here, helped Chi Omega at NC State with Rush, but my kids were too little. I couldn't get into the advisory role, but I got into it as an advisor with NC State in 2018 through COVID, which was a very interesting time to be a sorority advisor.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, there were no rules. I mean, there were rules. There was no blueprint to follow. There was no game plan. Every university was handling it differently. So it was very much a challenge, but I became the co-primary advisor in 23, which for Chi Omega is called personnel. A lot of other chapters, it would be standards. By the time COVID was over, we had like 4 advisors, and I've built it up to about 18 advisors now from 9 different chapters all over the country. So it's really cool. But I have 2 girls, one at East Carolina, who's a junior, one at Ole Miss, who's a freshman, neither of which are Chi Omegas. So we kind of run the gamut in my family. My mom was in a different chapter than all of us too. So we've kind of got it. We've kind of got it covered. So I've spent a lot of time around recruitment, either as the parent of children going through, which is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, no.
It's not. Thank God I had you the second time to hold my hand for, for part of it. And, my girls have had friends go through. So I've talked to their friends on the phone and their parents, and a lot of phone calls this year, which a lot of them were, it hurt my heart to talk to the parents.
So I think a couple of things that you said. One, if you're listening and your daughter's going to go through rush, or you're listening and you are going to go through rush, you need a game plan. This is not, you said earlier before we were started recording, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not something, doesn't matter what school you're going to, this is not something that you can just show up and do. And obviously, we would love to work with you, but regardless, you need a game plan, and you need to get that game plan in place as soon as you know where you're going. And that is an important thing. Also, I just said regardless of where you're going, but an important thing, and Caroline, I hope you talk about this in a little bit. The important thing to realize is it doesn't matter what school you're going to. It doesn't matter if there are 500 people going through rush or 3,000 people going through rush. You need to prepare. And that's what we're here for, to help you figure this out, and also what my book is for. Anyway, let's first talk from an advisor point of view, and then we'll get into it, what you experience, not with your daughters, because I know that that's not, we would like to keep everything anonymous here, and we don't like to talk about specifics when it comes to our kids, which makes sense. But we can talk anonymously about some of the things that you saw happen to friends' kids and how you think this can be prevented. So first off, game plan. What is going on right now, this is fall, in sororities who participate in fall recruitment? So we're talking almost a year from now. What's going on in the houses?
So, most of the chapters at this point are working on electing their next executive board. A new recruitment chair will come in for most chapters in January. If they've had formal recruitment in August, September, they're also trying to make sure that they're at what's called campus total. And this is what makes all this so incredibly interesting for those of us who went through recruitment in the 90s and our kids are going through now. It's not at all the same. And that's why so many of my friends are like, I was in a sorority. I don't, why would I need somebody to help? And they're like, then they realize this is nothing similar at all to what we went through. And I went through in 1995. That was 30 years ago. So it's very different. But, but the chapters are, some of them are finishing their new member period. My youngest one just got initiated on Sunday. I don't think initiation has happened for my oldest one's chapter yet. Maybe about that time. They're also keeping track of where their numbers are. So there's a big push from Panhellenic nationally with this growth mode. And we're seeing this partially thanks to you, Trisha. I call it the Bama effect from the Bama Rush documentary. It was already becoming big, but when we had the documentary and we've got the TikToks and everything, then we see this huge influx of women going through recruitment. And you always see the Ole Miss and the Alabama and the South Carolina and those, but we're even seeing it at like UNC Chapel Hill had record numbers. East Carolina had record numbers, largest group they'd had come through in almost 10 years. And so, the chapters are preparing for that, but they want to keep their numbers steady. So they are looking at that campus total number. So I think the campus total number at NC State right now is 192, and that includes your new members and your current actives. So you have to kind of start thinking about, even for them, what it might look like if you have a lot of girls graduate in December, or what it might look like if girls resign or they transfer. And so I try to tell them they're in recruitment mode 365 days a year, from what they're posting on social media to how they're representing their chapter on campus or at the bars, because we know they're going out. I mean, let's be clear that we are putting our best foot forward. And so the PNMs need to be doing the same thing, right? What they're posting online, so the chapters are always preparing for new girls to come in. Those who have spring recruitment are in big time practice mode, I would imagine. A lot of these chapters even start doing recruitment practice, like on a Sunday or something, even in the fall for the next fall.
Yeah, so she's making the best point there. So the sororities are already working. You need to already be working. and you need to start getting your social media strategy, and we have a riff organizer, which is also called a rec organizer, and I'm happy to send that to you. But what it is it's basically an Excel spreadsheet with all the sororities on it. And if you're walking down the street and you run into a friend and she's like, "Oh, how's your senior daughter doing?" And they say, "Oh, I was a Chi Omega at Alabama. I would be happy to write her a rec." You need to write that down and keep it all organized. So when it does come time I mean, there's a lot more than this, but that's just one specific thing. So when it does come time to get recs, then you have it all organized. And so it's not a mad scramble in the spring. So the sororities are already working for next year, so you need to be too. Let's talk about what are the challenges that sororities are facing. And I learned this from Whitford. I think NC State does a no frills rush. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we don't have to talk about it. I'm just saying, like, there are different challenges at every school. And so they're working to meet those challenges, I guess is the right thing to say.
Yes, so it's no frills at NC State. They kept the first round on Zoom. I think that was a carryover from COVID. A lot of these bigger SEC schools, I know Ole Miss does it, Tennessee. I'm not sure about South Carolina. I can't remember. That they do the first round on video.
A lot of schools do that.
A lot of them do, and it's because it's so many girls. I think East Carolina handles it beautifully. Granted, I'm a little biased. They break round one. So there's 11 chapters there as well. There's 11 chapters at NC State. There's 11 chapters at Ole Miss. So it's very interesting that my wheelhouse there is based on 11 chapters. But they break round one into 2 days, and 6 chapters recruit on like a Thursday and the other 5 on Friday. And they use the student center, the ballrooms, and they use the big black velvet curtains, and they break the ballroom into sections, and the houses recruit out of the student center. It's easier on the P&Ms because they're not.
Oh, yeah. They're not running house to house sweating.
Correct. East Carolina and UNC their setup is similar, that it's old homes that border campus are what are the sorority and fraternity houses. So they're not all in a village like they are at South Carolina or NC State, and they're not on 2 streets running parallel to each other like they are at Ole Miss. So when I went through at ECU, we went to all the houses the first day, and you'd go back and forth to the basketball stadium and get on the bus. And it's long and it's hot in Greenville, North Carolina in September. And so it's always a challenge that the universities are trying to figure out, one, how to do it with spending the least amount of money that they can. And, having the girls at the student center and they're walking from the dorms makes it so their first 2 rounds at East Carolina, they do it that way, that they don't have to use buses. So that saves the university. But yeah, they are very much no frills. I would say East Carolina is somewhat no frills. But when you're comparing it to Ole Miss or an Arkansas or an Alabama, it's not exactly the same. But they call it values-based recruitment, and you want it to be values-based no matter what school. But it's been real interesting to see the differences of having a child go through at a smaller school. East Carolina has more undergraduate students than Ole Miss does. But they just have a smaller percentage that go through recruitment, and then getting the feedback of having one go through at Ole Miss and what that was like for her.
Yeah, it's again, it's something you need to prepare for, but it looks very different at every school. And so
It does.
getting a game plan in place for your school. So we give this to our clients, but once you decide where you're going to school, go on the Panhellenic website, do your research, find out how many chapters are there, look at the rush or the recruitment guide from the previous year. And you can also do this on my book. My book will tell you all this stuff. It comes out in May. Pre-order now. Got to do a commercial in every podcast now.
100%.
But go and get your game plan in place based on the school that you're going to. Find out how many sororities are there. Look at the recruitment guide from the previous year, like I just said, and start intentionally working. So, okay, apparently you have some friends who, because a lot of people think, oh, I was in a sorority, I can do this, I can help my daughter. It's changed since I've had my business so much.
Oh, yes.
And the amount of research that we do, you couldn't do that if you tried. I mean, we have the knowledge of the system. And so, what I'm saying is, it's a lot of work. And so, you can do some of that on your own or without my book, but I wouldn't recommend it. And so, let's talk about some of the things that you heard about this year and why you think that those things happened.
So I think one of the biggest challenges with the way the system works right now is on each campus.
To you real quick, because that's another thing I do on my podcast. Both of us are big proponents of the Panhellenic system. So just want you guys to know that. Like we're not ripping them at all, but
No.
with the amount of growth that has happened in this system, there have been increased challenges for them. And I'm glad I don't have to figure it out, figure those challenges out. So anyway, I want to preface this because and I've never heard you say anything negative, but I just want listeners to know that we have the knowledge of what the challenges are and we respect that where people are working, but there are challenges. So continue.
Well, there are, and you mentioned that it's changed. I mean, my oldest one went through in 23. I feel like things are different from when she went through in 23.
Right.
In different ways that different schools handle things as far as talking to PNMs prior to the recruitment experience starting. And there's not that anybody wants to do this. I have done it recently. I went down the rabbit hole on National Panhellenic Council website with the recruitment rules that all schools are supposed to follow. Now, each school within its own, whatever it's called, Greek office FSL, which would stand for Fraternity Sorority Life, everybody calls it something different. They then set their own like bylaws and standing rules, but there are very specific rules that NPC says that these rules you can't change these.
What happens if they do change them? I know the answer to this. Let's say they don't follow the rules.
That's a really great question, Trisha, that I don't know the answer to because I.
They get fined, is what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying.
Are you talking about the chapters or the university?
Oh, okay.
So yeah, two different things. The chapters get fined, yes, for not following Panhellenic rules during the recruitment process, whether it's bid promising or decor or whatever it is that they are. And that kind of leads to this next thing. So typically the way that they know that the chapters are violating it is because the active members of sororities, several of them during formal recruitment, will leave their chapters and they're either on Panhellenic exec or they are, depends on where you're in school. At NC State, they're SRCs, so student recruitment counselors. At East Carolina, they're PICIs. I think at Ole Miss, they were just recruitment counselors. They're all different names.
When I was writing my book, that was very hard about Rush. So if I wrote Gamma Chi, for instance,
Right.
somebody who had a Pi Chi might be like, wait, what? I don't know what that is. So that's just an interesting fact about my book. That was very painstaking to try to get information for every school, which is why it took me so long to write it.
And at some schools, they disaffiliate and some they don't. And they are not required to disaffiliate. When I did it my senior year, we were Rokais and you 100% disaffiliated. There were probably girls from 5 different chapters piled into my apartment all living together because you couldn't even live with it was super fun, actually. Made some really good friends my senior year in other chapters that I probably never would have really gotten close with if I hadn't done that. But so the challenge is these girls are coming in as recruitment counselors for the PNMs. And they are trained by Panhellenic, which is fabulous. And I love that there's somebody who's their age that's there to support them. But it has taken me years to have the full knowledge of exactly how this process works. And if you make this choice, here's the scenarios and the options you have if this is the choice that you make. And I don't think these girls, and I'm saying this as a parent who has an active daughter who has been on the formal side, as an active twice and as a PNM once, she does not fully understand the process. I mean, she does probably more so than a lot of people. And I'm not going to tell her story because I hope one day she works for Trisha and she'll be on this podcast and she'll be able to tell it herself. But Her situation would not have turned out the way it did, most likely, if she'd not had me going, okay, here's your options, here's the scenarios, here's what will happen if you make A choice, B choice, C choice. Because she was just being told, oh no, you got to do A. Go do A, go do A, go do A.
Being told that from her counselor.
From her recruitment counselor. And that's what those girls are taught to do. And I understand that. We want everybody to stay in the process. You want to continue through all the way to the end and look at all your options and find the best place. I don't love a cliche, but it works out the way it's supposed to is typically accurate. Sometimes it's real painful to get there. And it was painful for my oldest one to get there. Could not have been happier, but it's challenging for 20-year-old girls to advise 18-year-old girls how to go through this process when they've really only been through it once or twice themselves. And that's a challenge.
Yeah, and I'm going to have you tell a story about that. But what she's talking about, and she's being very clear, but I'm just reiterating this. So when you go through Rush, it's chaotic and it's hard, and I mean, this is for most people. Some people just sail through clueless, and that's a great way to be, but it's also becoming increasingly hard to do that. But what she's saying is that these counselors that are advising them in a very critical time of Rush don't always understand the nuances that we get with experience and with years of research, and those nuances can be really important. And why don't you tell them the story from this past year?
I always encourage girls to finish the process. Finish the process. You have to go to all the parties you're invited to. It's called going through in good faith. So there was a young lady who went through, and I didn't talk to her mom until after everything was all said and done.
And incidentally, this is another reason why I'm so glad she's on my team, because she's had a lot of experience talking to people. But continue.
So she got to pref with two houses, which we all know doesn't always happen that you have two, but she had two. So when her parties were over, she comes back to wherever it was that she was supposed to meet up with her recruitment counselor to sign her Maraba.
That Maraba is the thing that you sign at the end of Rush that indicates that you will take a bid from one of the choices or one choice.
Right. So I think the school had done a good job of explaining to them, you have to, if you sign it and there's two, you know that there's a chance you're going to get either one. And so she told her recruitment counselor, I don't want the second one. Like, I'm not going to take a bid there. When you do that and you just choose one, even though you had two as an option, that's called single intention preference, which is very often frowned upon. You've got to really understand what your scenario is. So that means, okay, I'm only choosing this one, which means if I don't rank where I need to on their list, I'm not getting a bid. However, when you do that, you are available to be snap bid, which we can get into that. We don't have to, Trisha.
I did a whole podcast episode.
Yes, on snap bids and COBs and trying to explain the difference to 18-year-old girls who are having this is a very emotional experience for them, right? To try to get them to explain this, and you're using terms like campus total and quota, and so they don't understand what that means. So she made it real clear with her recruitment counselor that she did not want option two. I'm not going to take a bid from option two. But recruitment counselor, as she was trained, we do not advise you single intention preference. However, when you list both and you get option two and you're not willing to do it, if you decline the bid, then you are now not eligible for anything until formal recruitment again. So the following year. So this young lady ended up on a campus that had multiple SNAP bids and COBs to give out, but she could not accept them because she had declined her bid, even though she had told her SRC she didn't want House 2.
Yeah, it's such a complicated.
It is.
And it's super scary, because we've also talked about this at some places. If you trust the process and you write both down, they will reward you for that. So it's a hard thing to do. But I think the moral of the story is you got to listen to, I don't know. The moral of the story is it's really hard to understand and trust, and that's why it's good to have someone in your corner who
Mhm.
does understand. And that's what we do. And again, not everybody can swing a full rush consultant, which again,
Right.
this part is not trying to be a commercial, but it's important to trust where you're getting your information and make a decision based on that, which is for those of you who don't get rush consultants, that would be my book. But I think that so now she's ineligible.
If mom had talked to me after pref, I would have said, or when she opened the bid card, I would have told her to go to the house. Go to the house that you got the bid. Try it. Try it for a few weeks. It doesn't matter if you decline the bid, you're not eligible. If you go to the house, try it for a few weeks, say it's not for me, you've not done yourself any damage. I always say try, but you can't force people to do what they don't want to.
So she didn't try, she
Mm.
declined it,
Yep.
and now she's ineligible. So that's not a scenario that you want.
No, no.
And I did do a full podcast episode with one of my mentors who did try at Ole Miss,
Yes.
and she was happy as a clam. But her world was rocked. And what we're trying to do with this podcast and with what we do at it's our company and with my book is for you guys not to be in these positions without having someone in your corner, which is really important. Like if your friend had talked to you at any point during the process, it would have probably ended up differently. And I hope that she's doing well. And I know that how frustrating it is. And especially that stinks. There were a bunch of COBs and snaps.
I saw, granted, I didn't get into the down and dirty of but so many schools, but I think there were a lot at the North Carolina schools, a lot of single intention preference this year.
Really? And why do you
Yes.
think that was?
It's a really great question that there's so much, this is the other part people don't realize. There's so much math involved with this.
Oh my gosh. Talk about the book. I was like, I took math so many times that they finally waived the requirement. I'm terrible at
The
math.
RFM, and people are like, what a release figure methodology, and how they determined, in ranking and lists, and I can remember talking to my one of mine when she was released from a house, and I was like, it's just where you end up on their list. It's math. It literally is math. They're told by Panhellenic how many girls they can invite back to each party. They don't even know when they make their list how many girls they can bring back. So
Yes, math is going to be the death of all of us. And that's also something important to remember, that when you're going through this, that 99% of the time, or maybe even 100% of the time, that's again math. It's not personal. It's not that you did something wrong. And as parents, that's important for you to hear. So when your daughter does get released from a house, you don't say, "What did you do? What did you do wrong?" It's rarely that you did something wrong. It is because of math. So we can all blame math for everything.
exactly.
So the moral of this story and this podcast is do your research as much as you can while understanding that is our life's work. So it's not possible to get all the information, but it is possible to get a game plan in place. Once you find out where you're going to school, start doing this intentionally. This is a word I use a lot on this podcast. And get the book or get someone that you trust who understands the system to help you through this. And this is something that needs to start now if you're going through Rush next year, and should have already started if you're going through Rush in the spring. So,
Yeah.
last minute words of wisdom or advice. If you don't, that's totally fine.
I think my biggest thing is to think of this sort of like a job interview, or looking at like an internship, right? Thousands of people are applying for a lot of these internships. You're prepping for that. So as I have a daughter who's a junior, and looking at what this internship's going to look like during the summer between, junior and senior year, and what that may lead to a job later. You would prep for interviews for an internship or prep for interviews for a job, and you are competing against other people for that internship and that job. So a lot of times you need help with getting ready for those things. And you may be getting a reference from somebody to recommend you for a job. It's sort of the same thing. That's kind of what I feel like recruitment is it's the beginning of training college women what's coming later. And I'm a big proponent of course, the recruitment piece, but the retention piece and really getting girls to understand the value that comes later. I mean, look at this connection between you and me because I reached out because, I was either having a child going through at an SEC school or the same school where her sister was. And it's because of the Greek relationship. I mean, my oldest one's probably going to have an internship or potential something with some ladies who've built an amazing business that are only 2 years younger than I am, but they were in her sorority in college. She gets that immediate connection. That's part of the value, right? It's the value, and it's the value of having somebody to help you build these relationships and prepare you. And you've got it so dialed in. I'm just excited to be able to help you and maybe take a little bit off your plate.
Me too. Thank you, Lord, for Caroline. And so, yes, did I mention earlier that you're director now? Anyway, she is. She's going to be working. So if you with us, and so you will get the benefit of her knowledge and years of experience. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful you were here today. Thank you. And the moral of the story, listeners, get a game plan. Prepare. That is what you need to do to reach your goals in anything that you do. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Trisha.
Okay, so because I surround myself with rock stars and because I'm leaning into rush prep for these episodes, I'm not going to do timeout with Trisha because that is rush prep. So anyway, the whole episode was rush prep. So thank you for listening. In the meantime, check out my Instagram at Rush with Confidence for more tips. See you next week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. For additional Rush tips, updates, and more, please follow me on Instagram at Rush with Confidence. If you would like to reach out to us or for more information, please email info@madrushpod.com. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry and Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Trisha Adams.